So I told you about my worst investment, which was $17,000 down the drain, and that was that printer right there, the Ricoh RI1000 DTG printer. Now, if you haven't seen that video and you want to learn more about that, I highly suggest you check it out. It's going to be this video right here. It's going to be linked down in the description below. But today's video is not going to be about that one. In that video, I actually mentioned a different printer that I ordered from China, a DTF printer, that was a total printer from hell.
Yes, from hell.
And that's what this video is going to be about. So at one point a couple years ago, I figured I want to start selling transfers. I have a ton of different designs that I have access to, and some of them are really good. I have some traction going to my website. Let me start selling DTF transfers. And I decided to start looking online for different types of DTF transfers that I could purchase, or simply a regular inkjet one that I could convert. Now there's quite a few different printer choices out there for you to be able to purchase as an inkjet and convert them to DTF. But to be completely honest with you, I did that with Sublimation, and I thought, I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with the maintenance. I don't want to deal with the actual conversion process. And I know to convert to DTF, it is going to be more complicated than a Sublimation conversion. So I thought, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to buy a printer that is already working. Personally, I like things that just work, especially right out the box. Every once in a while, I'll try a hack or something like that, you know, like the Sublimation conversion. But really, it's not my preferred way of doing things, at least not anymore. Back then, I used to tinker a lot. And I used to like to try these different hacks to see what I can do to save a little bit of money or to simply just do things myself. But honestly, I don't have the time for that anymore.
I have no time anymore.
I have 2 kids now. My time is pretty much all tied up, whether it be with the business, making videos, or spending time with the family. It gets really hard to do things, and adding maintenance on top of it is just one of those things that is unnecessary that I would have to deal with. Now, with DTF printers, a lot of them, you actually do need to do some sort of daily maintenance, whether that be shaking the inks or just having it run a little bit to keep the ink heads moist. Now, honestly, I don't really know what other maintenance you have to do to it, at least not monthly or weekly, but honestly, that alone is just an extra thing I have to do each and every day that I don't want to do. But I figured, you know what, I'm going to be running this printer a lot. I'm going to be selling transfers. I'm going to be using them for my shirts. Something as simple as shaking the ink cartridges or just running the printer, I'm not going to have a problem with that, especially if I'm making some money from it. Again, remember, this was about 1 to 2 years ago. So I had a little bit more time because at the time I also only had 1 child. So I started looking around online, I went on Google, and I started looking up different DTF printers. Now, the ones that I found were extremely expensive because they were huge. These were mass production printers, and I figured I would love to have one of these, but 1, it's totally out of my price range, and 2, they're absolutely enormous. I have no space for that. So I started looking for a smaller home DTF printer, in which case I really couldn't find any, at least not at the time. Now there are a few more options that aren't converted, which actually, to my knowledge, most DTF printers are actually converted. I think L1800 Epsons. I'm not entirely sure about that. Yeah, it's an L1800 Epson. I really couldn't find many desktop printers that I could use. So I thought, let me turn to China. So I went on Alibaba and I started searching there a few different suppliers. I looked through there to see who had the better reviews, and there were quite a few. But then there was one that stood out to me because the printer looked pretty good. It looked like it was easy to use. They had really good reviews, and I've purchased from them in the past. So I have sublimation paper that I have for sale on my website, nicoprints.com, and I had a pretty good transaction with them the first time. So I figured, you know what? They're offering DTF printers. Let me check it out. The DTF printer had really good reviews. I spoke to the sales rep. She assured me that everything was great on the printer. She showed me samples. She showed me things that they've pressed with it. And I thought, all right, let's go ahead and do this.
Let's do this.
Now, the printer itself at the time, I think totaled out to about $3,000 to $4,000. So it wasn't the most expensive thing, but it was still $3,000 to $4,000. That's a lot of money. Now, that was just the printer. Then I also thought I'm going to need something to cure the powder. In which case I saw that they had shakers and they had single sheet curers, or ovens, I think they were. But either way, it was pretty much just like a little oven where you put in the DTF sheet and it would cure and melt the powder. Now, for those of you that don't know, with DTF printing, you have a printer that prints on DTF sheets, which stands for direct to film. So it's a specific type of film that you print on. Of course, you print using a special type of ink, and then on top of that ink, you lay down adhesive powder. That adhesive powder then has to go into some heat in order to get melted, so that way it can then melt onto the t-shirt and actually stay on there. It's a pretty simple process, but it can be kind of time consuming, especially if you're doing just one shirt. So I figured with the production that I currently have, at the time I was getting quite a good amount of orders because I was really putting in a lot of work to my marketing. With that, I figured a shaker is going to be better for me. What a shaker is pretty much an oven where the DTF sheets are going going to go from the DTF printer. It's going to print, it's going to feed through the oven, where that oven is going to be shaking, which is where it gets its name, shaker. And as it shakes, it's going to be laying down DTF powder on top of the ink that was just printed. And then it goes through the oven, which is going to go ahead and melt it. And then it's going to roll up the whole print. Now, I don't have a huge office, but at the time I had enough space in here to be able to fit both of those. And I thought, you know what? Just send it. Let's go ahead and do it and pray for the best. So I placed the order, time passed, and I received my printer. Now, I received my printer without the shaker. And so I kept in constant contact with the sales rep, and she kept assuring me it'll be there soon, it'll be there soon, it'll be there soon. I think about 2 or 3 months passed when I finally received it, and it was totally destroyed. I think it was about 2 or 3 months later, they sent me an email saying, look, the package has arrived, but it was inspected and it was deemed that the entire machine is unusable. So we can have it shipped to you and you can go ahead and keep it and try to repair it, or we can send you a replacement. I was absolutely heated. I was so mad. I had that printer just sitting there for 2 or 3 months waiting on this shaker, to just not have one or have to wait another 2 or 3 months to receive another one. I told the sales rep, look, I don't want it. It's been 2 or 3 months more than what was originally anticipated. At this point, it's already been about 5 months or 6 months. It's already been half a year. I've wasted enough time. I don't want it. Just go ahead and keep your replacement. Give me a refund.
I want a full refund.
They didn't want to give me a refund. I fought with them and I told them, look, I'm going to go to Alibaba and I'm going to contact their customer service and I'm going to tell them that it's going to be over a year before I get my shaker. And honestly, at this point, I don't want it. I don't want to have to deal with another potential delay. Just give me my money back. And then after some constant back and forth, they finally agreed, fine, we'll give you your money back. So I was able to receive a refund for the shaker. I figured, you know what, I'm just going to print out the DTF sheets and I'm going to cure them using the heat press. So I started the setup of the DTF printer. I set everything up and I started printing. It was printing perfectly fine. Everything was going great in the first print, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the print, the white just stopped printing. I have no clue why. So I started looking around, I started messing with it, I tried shaking it, I made sure that there were no air bubbles in the lines, I ran the ink through, I took it out, I took it back in, I filled the lines, I did everything I could think of and everything that I could Google. Nothing was working. It would print out just the colored layer. The white base would just not print. It would act as if it was, but it wasn't. So I reached out to the sales rep, and mind you, they're in China. So I reach out to them during the day and I have to wait until the next day to get a reply, or stay up until like 1 or 2 in the morning, which I always was staying up that late. So it was okay. Communication every once in a while would take a little bit longer than anticipated or than I wanted, but I was able to get around it somewhat. So then after some back and forth, I had to schedule a call with their technician. I got on a video chat with their technician. We were looking at the printer. They said everything looked good. They had me try a couple things here and there, and nothing was working. Everything was giving us the same result. Now, let me tell you that the troubleshooting steps that we were taking, honestly, these are not for the not so tech savvy. So at first it was simply, shake the cartridges, make sure there's no air in the lines, those kinds of things. But then they had me actually open up the printer and poking around through the different types of wires that there were. I was unplugging a few things, plugging them somewhere else. And honestly, it's not that hard, at least to me, but I used to work IT. I know there's a lot of people that do not understand these things, and they see a circuit board and they're just like, blank. It just happens. There's certain types of people that it's not for them. So opening up a printer and navigating them through everything that they see with a significant language barrier can get pretty complicated.
This is where it gets complicated.
So we did all of that troubleshooting, and they determined that the print heads were bad. There was something with the print heads, or that there was some short circuit there that caused the print heads to short circuit. I don't know. There was some crazy thing there that they told me that it could have been lost in translation, but it pissed me off because I waited so long to be able to finally get to use this printer, and I couldn't. Now, another thing to note is that while I'm getting on a video call with these technicians, I'm getting on a video call on their business hours. So I'm doing this around 11 to 12 at night, and I'm having to do this for maybe 1 or 2 hours at a time for about 3 or 4 days, with me having to wake up early the next day to go to work. And on top of that, having to deal with my regular orders for my t-shirt business.
You've had a tough couple of weeks.
So needless to say, that was a very tough week with a very bad ending. I was so pissed off by the end of that Friday that I didn't want to have to deal with anything anymore. So I reached out to them throughout the weekend and I told them, look, can I just have my money back, or at least a partial refund? Because this is just getting too ridiculous. And of course, they flat out denied me. They said no. They told me that we can continue troubleshooting, and if it doesn't work, then they'll send me out a few pieces. So after that, I said, fine, whatever. We kept on troubleshooting for another day or two until it was determined that finally, yeah, look, it's not going to work. You need to get these pieces in. Then I was told that because of the shipping costs, they're going to ship it through sea, and that's going to take another month or two, maybe 3. Dude, by that time, I was so pissed. I was so heated. I didn't even want to deal with it anymore. I didn't even want to have to deal with that printer. I was already, God knows how many months into it. It had already been like 7 months at this point. And those $4,000, I kind of thought, you know what, this is a huge waste of money. I just lost $4,000. Like, I lost all that money. So needless to say, I did lose $4,000. I admitted that to myself and I came to terms with it. But I figured, you know what, let me still receive those parts. So we got the parts. It was already like 9 months, 10 months into it, and it didn't work. I don't remember exactly what it was, to be honest with you. I had received print heads, and then I also received a few different cables to replace. But then when I went to go make the replacement, this was already, again, remember, maybe 2 or 3 months after the original troubleshooting steps. I opened it up, I looked in the inside, and I realized one of these lines has a leak. So ink had leaked out of either the print heads or one of the lines, and gotten all over the circuitry and all over the boards. And yeah. So at that point, I figured, you know what, I'm done. And I just tossed it. Like, I couldn't deal with that anymore. At this point, they were just going to have to end up sending me a totally new printer, and they were going to charge me for it. So I was done. And then at that point that's when I started looking for a different alternative, which is where I came across this beauty right there that has just been sitting there. And again, if you want to learn more about that huge investment, which was an even bigger waste of money, then check out this video right here where I go into detail of everything about that printer and why it was a bad investment for me. It's not necessarily that it's going to be a bad investment for you, but for me, it ended up not being worth it. Again, for more information on that, just check out the description down below. Huge thank you to everyone for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I realized that you guys really like my dramatic videos and my big regrets. So if you have any questions for me, or if you have any video suggestions for me, or any topics you want me to cover, just go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. I want to know what you guys want. I want to know what you want to hear about, and let me know if there's anything that could be of interest to you. Again, huge thank you to everyone for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end. If you made it this far, that means you love this video, so make sure you smash that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and ring that little bell notification so you don't miss out on any future videos. My name is Mario with Kittl Prints, and catch you guys next time. Peace.